Okay, so let's get right into this. There's a video making the rounds that makes a truly wild claim that the United States military secretly went into another country and kidnapped its president. We're going to break down exactly what this source is alleging, the how, the why, and what it claims this all means for the rest of the world.
Yeah, the source really doesn't pull any punches. It kicks the whole thing off with this one single explosive line. It's framing the entire story as a dramatic, overnight kidnapping of a world leader. So first up, let's look at the core allegation, the source's very detailed story of how Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro was supposedly captured. According to this video, we're not talking about some political move here, but a full-on military operation. It claims that elite Delta forces stormed President Maduro's home in the dead of night and took him and his wife right out of their bedroom. I mean, that is a truly stunning accusation. Okay, so how did this supposedly all go down? Well, the source gets into the alleged military details, describing the mission as this massive, coordinated attack. To give you a sense of the scale, the source claims a staggering 150 aircraft were involved. So we're not talking about a small, stealthy mission. According to this narrative, this was a huge display of military power really designed for shock and awe. The source lays out a very precise timeline. It says the operation kicked off at 1 a.m., with strikes to take out any military bases that might interfere. Then, Delta forces supposedly breached Maduro's secure room. And get this, by 3:29 a.m., just a little over 2 hours later, they were completely out of the country. Maduro was then supposedly taken to a warship and then flown to New York. It's a sequence that's all about incredible speed and precision. And to add another layer to this, the source claims then President Trump didn't just give the green light. Oh no. It says he watched the whole thing unfold in real time and supposedly described it as being like a TV show that he really enjoyed. All right, so let's shift gears to the why. The source argues that any official reasons you might have heard for this operation, well, they were just a cover story. The real motive, it claims, was something much simpler: oil. The source traces this whole conflict back to Maduro's predecessor, Hugo Chavez. See, when Chavez nationalized the oil industry, he kicked out major U.S. companies and took over their stuff. The video argues that the entire operation was really pushed by these powerful oil companies who wanted their assets back, and that the U.S. government was just acting on their behalf. So here's the bottom line. According to the source, any public justifications, things like charges of drug trafficking, were just a convenient excuse. The real goal, the ultimate goal, was to get rid of the guy standing in the way of American access to Venezuela's massive oil reserves. Simple as that. And this is where the story gets even bigger. The source zooms way out, arguing this alleged event isn't just about one country or one resource. It claims this whole thing represents a massive and pretty dangerous shift in how global power works. To make its point, the video first talks about the old way of doing things, what it calls the Monroe Doctrine. It presents this as a historical policy of basically staying out of each other's business, where different major powers respected each other's sovereignty. But now, the source claims, we're living under a totally new set of rules it cleverly calls the Don Roe Doctrine. In this new world, that old idea of non-interference is just gone. All that matters are American interests, and any action, no matter how aggressive, is fair game if it's to protect them. And the source sums up this new doctrine with a really powerful Hindi idiom, Jiski lati, uski bans. It basically translates to might is right. The message couldn't be clearer. The days of international law and diplomacy are over. It's been replaced by the simple rule of brute force. Whoever's got the biggest stick gets to make the rules. So, if an event this huge really happened, you'd expect the world to have something to say about it, right? Well, the source gives us a detailed breakdown of the alleged international fallout. According to the source, the world's reaction was all over the place. You had U.S. allies like France supposedly calling it a liberation. Then you had the EU and the UK, who were reportedly more cautious, calling for calm, but not really condemning anything. Neighbors like Brazil condemned it, while adversaries like Russia and China made some strong statements but crucially didn't do anything. And the UN, well, it just expressed alarm that international law wasn't respected. And the source is especially critical of the world's other big powers. It paints the responses from Russia and China as weak, all talk and no action. And it specifically calls out what it describes as a complete and total silence from India,
suggesting a world that's just too afraid to stand up to the United States.
And that brings us to the end, where the source wraps everything up with both a conclusion and a pretty chilling warning.
The source claims President Maduro might have sealed his own fate. It alleges he had been publicly taunting the U.S., saying things like this, basically daring them to come after him. A provocation that, the source suggests, was a huge mistake. And this right here is the question the entire video has been building towards. It leaves the audience with a really unsettling thought. If a global superpower can just decide to remove another country's leader and the rest of the world just watches, what does being a sovereign nation even mean anymore? In a world where might is right, the source asks, who's next? And is anyone truly safe?